All right, we're at the final part of our liftgate PM. We're going to be doing the PM of the actual lifting unit itself. All right, right off the bat, one of the first things you should be looking out for is the operating instructions and the safety decals. Now you can see these things are pretty faded, and you definitely can't read the operating instructions. These have got to be on there. I talked to somebody from Maxon. They said if there's an accident involving the liftgate, the first thing they do is the lawyers come out and they check to see if the operating instructions and the safety decals are on the liftgate and if they're visible. And if they're not, you know, that kind of limits their liability. You know, if someone gets hurt because they don't know how to operate the liftgate and they weren't trained right, you know, they're not going to be liable for that. So this is important. You know, when you're PMing this, you're responsible to make sure that these operating instructions and the safety decals are on there. So look for the decals. There's some on both sides. All right, we're looking at the actual structure of the liftgate itself, the way it mounts to the trailer. All right, so this is a column style liftgate. This is the actual column itself. The part that doesn't move, the part that's connected to the trailer, that's the column. The thing that moves in and out inside there is the runner. All right, so we're looking at all of the welds, making sure they're okay, that they're not cracked or damaged. These look okay. You want to look at the columns to make sure they're not bent out. A lot of times what will happen if the liftgate is unfolded and out, if they forget about it and the driver goes to take it away and makes a turn, the liftgate hits something and it tweaks these columns out. And if this thing gets tweaked out too far, you'll have problems with it going up and down, and you'll have problems with it not stowing correctly, because this will be further away from the gate. So checking out all the welds on the columns on both sides. All right, outside and inside. We'll check the inside welds when we get this thing down. We've got our dock bumpers here. And I looked at this and I could see the reason why we were low on hydraulic oil. Trying to get a shot of it without getting oil in the camera, but there's a lot of oil at the bottom of that lift cylinder and nothing at the top. So what I'm thinking is it's leaking out of the seal on the bottom of the cylinder. So that lift cylinder is going to have to be replaced. It's operating up and down fine, but you can see all the oil on the outside of this. So most likely we have a leaking cylinder there. So we'll look out for leaks as we operate it. All right, got both our dock bumpers here. These are a little beat up, but they're all right. All right, so now we're going to take the lift gate out of the travel latch. All right, so when it's going down the road, you definitely want it in here. You don't want it just to be held hydraulically, because if something fails, that lift gate's going to come down and start dragging on the road. So whenever this thing's moving, it's traveling, it should be locked inside of these travel latches right here. All right, like I said, you can see this one's bent a little bit, but it's still in here. Check out the same thing on the other side. All right. This ear is inside the travel latch there, so even if we'd lose hydraulics, liftgate isn't going to go anywhere. All right, we're going to take this liftgate out and we're going to unfold it. Again, we're going to lift it up to bring it out of the travel latch, and then unfold. We go up and this way with the upper toggle switch. All right, bring it all the way up. With it all the way up, the platform should be level with the floor of the trailer. If it's sitting down low or too high, it causes a problem with loading and unloading. We want to look at our platform. If we notice it's dipping down too low, and that's what normally happens when they get a heavy load on this platform, these chains stretch out and it'll get lower and lower and lower. Once it starts getting a little bit too low, you can take a section or two out to kind of level the platform out. But once this thing gets so stretched, it's a good idea just to replace the chains. But yeah, you want this thing level going up and going down. When this thing goes all the way down to the ground, when this tip touches the ground, you want the bottom of the runners, the thing that come down, to be within an inch of the ground. Now we can't test this out here because we're on unlevel ground, but if you're in a flat level shop or on a paved surface, when you bring this down, you want this thing to touch the ground and this to be within an inch, if not touching the ground with it. If not, that means the platform is tilted forward too much and load could go rolling off here. All right, so we're gonna bring the liftgate down. Listen to the pump when you're moving the liftgate up, down, in and out, fold and unfold. Listen for any unusual noises, any squealing. If we hear any air in the system, that's the pump can get a cavitation, and that's really bad for a pump. So to make sure if we hear any squealing noises, we investigate it before we just keep running it up and down. All right, we have the platform down. I'm gonna hop on and I'm going to use the liftgate platform to lift me up and down to give me a boost to check out these welds that are mounting the liftgate onto the trailer to make sure they all look good and don't look cracked or damaged, overly rusty. And I am going to use the platform switch to raise me up and down. Now it's important that I use this to raise me up and down because this switch, unlike the ground switch, this one doesn't move at all, so there's no movement on the wire. So other than impact damage, there's not a lot that can go wrong with that other than the normal electrical stuff. But this is on a moving part, so it's got wires in here. Also the fold cylinder hydraulic hoses are routed through here. All right, so it moves right here. There's a little piece of like discharge hose or something like that protecting the electrical wires and hoses in there as it moves up and down the column. So if you imagine where my fingers come together, if there's a bad spot in the wire, a spot that's, you know, just about broken the whole way through, but when they're straight up and down, the wires are touching and everything works. So as it's coming around this bend right here, it opens up. As it comes around the bend, it opens up right here. So that bad spot in the wire opens up a little bit more and this stops working. And it happens a lot. The ground switch, this is on a separate wire. So it'll go up and down all day, no problems. But when you come on here to try to move the platform switch up or down, it'll get, say, halfway. And then when that bad spot in the wire comes around to this 12 o'clock position, this high position right here, the wire opens up and everything stops working. So it's important to test this switch out, one full cycle up the whole way up and one full cycle down the whole way down. All right, we're going up. Again, as I'm going up, I'm listening for any unusual noises, any squealing, any weird noises from the pump box. Watching my toes here. Make sure I don't cut them off. All right, we're all the way up, deck height. A couple things we want to check out. We're going to check out this platform pin right here. So, rather the platform pin. The hydraulic cylinder pin. So this up-down cylinder, the thing that's moving the runner up and down, the thing that's holding it to the column is this pin right here. All right, you want to check out the pin and the pin retaining device. This pin has a slot machined into it, and this piece of metal slides into it, and it's bolted on there, and it stops the pin from coming in and out. All right, while I'm here, I'm going to check out the welds. Make sure they look all right. Do the same thing on the other side. Looking at our welds. Making sure they look okay, not too rusty, not cracked. Same thing over here, checking out this up-down cylinder pin, making sure the retaining device is in there. Up around, everything looks good on the outside. All right, and all that looks good. While your platform is extended, it's a good time to check your chain tension. Look at this side right here, we're a little loose. And this side over here is tight. All right, so now this side's doing most of the lifting, holding most of the load. So what we want to do is we want to make some adjustments on this chain tension with these U-bolts right here. There's a U-bolt here and there's a U-bolt down there as well that you can adjust the tension on to match both sides. Just make sure you're on a level surface before you do it, because if you're on an unlevel surface, that'll screw you up and you end up making it uneven. All right, now I'm going to run my cycle the whole way down. And I'm going to come out here and look at these lower connection points. So this is the platform pin right here. That's what's connecting the platform onto the runner. That's important. These usually don't see too much wear. This is never seeing full rotational movement. It's moving 90 degrees this way, then 90 degrees that way. But they do see wear. They have a bushing in here. Something we'll look out for if this thing gets too worn. They replace these pins. These things come out pretty easy. Looking at this bottom lift cylinder pin, making sure that's there and its retaining device is there. we're looking at our fold cylinder, making sure the fold cylinder pin is in the bottom and the top, making sure its retaining device is on there. This fold cylinder right here, it's got some, looks like some dried oil on here. It might have had an oil leak here from this fitting in the past, or maybe someone cracked this fitting loose to bleed out the air of bleed the air out of the system. But either way, it's kind of something that we want to look at when we fold and unfold, make sure we don't see any oil leaks coming out of there. Check the pins out on the other side. Pins there, retaining's on there. Outside looks good. Make sure you check these columns. A lot of times they'll get impact damage right here. These will bend in and end up dragging up against the runner. It can damage the runner. Something to look out for. We're gonna come back here to the control switch and lift this up. Check out some of these other pins. All right, there's a pin right here. As you can see, this platform's 2 pieces and it pivots right here. So there's a pin right here that when you open and close it, you can kind of see if there's play in there. If not, you can kind of get a pry bar in there and pry in between it. Make sure it's retaining bolts right here. You can see there's a Zerk fitting right here. It's one of the last things I'll do is go around and show you where you gotta grease. Checking out our opening arm, or our linkage arm rather, make sure it's not bent in or out. Again, this is our travel latch ear. As you can see, this thing's bent, but it still goes in the keeper well enough, so we don't need to straighten that out. We can see our safety lights aren't working. There's no wiring to these lights. These are kind of like a mercury switch. I'm not sure if that's the actual technology in there, but they work where when it's stowed, when it's up, the light isn't on, and then when this comes down, something completes a connection in here, and the light's supposed to come on. So our safety lights aren't working, and those are important so no one crashes into your lift gate. Check the other side out. That one's working. All right, so we'll replace that light. Want to make sure this ear is straight, not too bent, everything latching all right. Checking out our U-bolts, chain, our other linkage arm, make sure it's not bent. We want to hop on here and look at our cart stops. All right, make sure that theirs are moving freely. Those don't get stuck. If they get stuck in the open position, it makes it a pain in the butt to load and unload. Looking at the general condition of the platform, making sure there's not excessive rust, nothing cracked or broken. All right, we're gonna check these fold out ramps. There we go. No missing hardware, everything with the ramps look good. Checking these pins, making sure they're on there. All right, and they look good. All right, another important thing to check out on this lift gate are the wear pads. So if we look at these red things right here, these are the wear pads. So when the runner is moving up and down inside the column, these wear pads are what stop it from rubbing metal on metal. So you can see they're retained. This one is retained by this little block right here. You gotta be careful. Sometimes these fall off and then this pad will just come right out. But you'll kind of notice it on the back side of the runner. If you look there, gets deep grooves worn into the back of the runner. So you're gonna make sure that these wear pads are here and they don't allow for too much play in the runner in the column. Check the same thing out on this side. You can see it's covered in oil, but we got our wear pad here, wear pad in the front, and then we want to climb out and check the upper wear pads as well. Bring this thing down. a look at these. You can see this one it's kind of worn right now. It's mostly because the lift gate is unfolded and the weight is forward, so it's kind of taking this column, or rather this runner, and putting all the weight on the front side here. But you can see there's a little bit of play in there, so, but definitely not enough to replace it. It's still got plenty of life left in it. Another wear pad in the front. Same thing on the other column. You can see this one has a little bit of play too, but it's all right. And then again, another wear pad in the back side here. As long as those are there and they're not too worn, should be okay. All right, one of the last things to do before we write up the rest of this PM and do all the necessary repairs on it is grease up the Zerk fittings on here. So we have a Zerk fitting right here on the fold cylinder coupler. We got a Zerk fitting here on the platform connection here in between the pivot pin and that bushing. There's a Zerk fitting right here on this pivot connection right here. Zerk fitting here on the fold out ramp hinge. Same thing here, Zerk fitting. Got one right here, one right there, and one right there. And as far as greasing things on the liftgate, that's all you got to do. So we'll hit these up. It don't take much, about a pump or two at most before it starts exiting out. All right, see it start to squeeze out there. We don't make a big mess, so I'll stop there. It's enough on that one. This connection. All right. This one. There we go. Whoop. All right, we'll wipe off our excess grease so don't make a mess, and we'll be good to go. All right, that about concludes the PM on this Waltco WDV Generation 2 liftgate. We're gonna fold it back up. A couple of closing things. Make sure this conspicuity tape's on here. This liftgate blocks the door, and as you can see, the lower part of the door, DOT requires that conspicuity tape be across there. So make sure that's on there. That's a requirement. All right, we're gonna fold this thing up and then get approval for the repairs. When you're folding these things up, make sure you lift it the whole way up before you fold it. Make sure these little bottom stops are on here. If you look, there's a little hook right here and then a matching hook right here. When you have the liftgate folded up but want to bring it all the way down so you can still bring your forklift in and out of there, you still use it on the dock. This is a thing that catches it. A lot of times if you get damage on these lift gates, these things will get tweaked out or the lift gate will be coming out and this will completely miss the catch here. So make sure these catches are on there. And they're in good shape. All right, fold this up. Again, we have the lift gate the whole way up to fold it. We'll be holding up on the toggle switch and back on the upper toggle switch to close it. All right, watch your chains, make sure they don't get bound up. And you can see when it's all the way up, when you lift it up, this travel ear is above the travel latch. All you gotta do is bring it down and it'll tuck right in there. All right, and normally they have this travel latch cam would come down and sit on this, but that one's missing, so we'll get that replaced. And that concludes the PM.